Hello, my name's Chris Hadley, and I'm having a full stack life rebuild. Recently, I published the first episode of my new cartoon animated series. And in this video, I will be taking you through the process, the learnings, and the one takeaway that might prove controversial. A few weeks ago, I found myself panicking. I was trying to think of what to do for a next video to hit my minimum of one a week, but seemingly inspiration had left the building. I had no ideas. Had I really run out of things to say? Was this the end of my entrepreneurial adventure? Then an idea came to me. What if I created a cartoon animated series to talk through the mechanisms and the systems of identity and behavior? Surely with all of these new AI tools, it would be simple and child's play to put together a short 3-minute animated cartoon. And so I started. To begin with, I thought it would be just like working with ChatGPT or Base44. I come up with an idea, I create a prompt, and voila, I have my episode. I estimated it would take me about 5 days to get all of this done. But oh, how naive that turned out to be. Let me walk you through the actual process and what it really took. Initially, I had really no idea what I was doing with any of this. I didn't understand the tools, I didn't know what the process was. So the first thing I did was go to YouTube and try and find somebody who could help. And after a little looking around, I found this guy, Jack vs. AI. Now, he just happened to have an episode called Master AI Cartoons that walks through every single aspect of how to do exactly what I was looking for. He was also very generous with sharing templates and some tools as well that I used while making the episode. Shout out to Jack, thanks a lot for all the help. During that video, Jack suggested that the best tool that I could use would be Higgsfield AI. This was something that I'd never heard of before. I had no idea what it was or how it worked. As you can see, coming into it to begin with, it's quite the assault on the senses. It's a little difficult to work out exactly what it is that you're looking at. There's just so many different things. And then you start looking at the top at all the different menus here for image, video, audio, supercomputer. The list goes on and on and on. I have to admit, after being in tech for 30 years, this was pretty humbling. After a while, I realized that rather than being an actual tool itself, Higgsfield is more like a marketplace. So, for example, these are all of the different tools that you can use to do with image generation. And then this is video and audio. So, I now have my tool that I was going to use to generate the clips that were going to create the video. With my account all set up, the first thing to do was to create all of the reference assets. So here we are in Nano Banana Pro. This is what I use to create all of the reference images for the characters and the locations. As you can see, there's quite a lot of them. This went through a lot of trial and error. This was me learning how to do prompting with these tools, all the way back to when I was originally picking the style and trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I want this to look like? Is it going to be claymation? Is it going to be 2D? Is it 3D? And, you know, there's some pretty fun times had putting all of this together. But knowing that I can suffer from procrastination dressed as perfectionism, I forced myself to pretty quickly choose a style and start moving on. So the reason for creating all of this information is so that the models have the information to make sure that the characters and locations stay consistent over the course of the series of your animated cartoons. I was having a lot of fun, as you can see, just going through a single character and the multitude of different options that it creates for you. So I moved through these things pretty quickly and eventually got to a point where I had all the reference that I required to start generating movie clips. But there was one more step I had to do before that. Next, I had to go to ChatGPT and work on the script. We spent 8 days working on this script. Now, over the course of the entire duration of the filming and the creation of this episode, that was because I was changing my mind. I was coming back and looking at characters differently. And as all of these options started melding together, certain things made sense and certain things stopped making sense. So obviously it didn't take me 8 days to get the first version of this, and pretty quickly I'd got something that I was ready to move forwards with. So armed with my reference information and with my script, I came back into Higgsfield and we jumped into Seedance 2. Now, Seedance 2 is a 4K video generation tool, And this particular tool, and seemingly from what I can see, most video generation tools at this moment, are limited to 15-second clips. This came as a big surprise to me, and all of a sudden I had to start going back to ChatGPT and breaking everything down into smaller chunks. My goal was for this first episode to be around about 3 minutes, so I was probably going to need somewhere around 12 scenes. Now, as it turned out, it was a little longer than that, so it ended up being 15. So, armed with my reference image and my prompt, I created my first clip and started learning lessons almost immediately. Let me show you what I mean. This is the first clip that I ever generated.
Well, I did work out yesterday. Surely a couple of drinks wouldn't hurt.
Okay, so you might look at that and say, well, that's not too bad, but there are a number of glaring errors. Number one, there's photorealism in there. The only part of this, in fact, that's cartoon is Derek. Then there's the speech. Well? No, it's supposed to be well, but AI didn't understand it when I typed it like that. The first part was my fault. You might be able to see here that I had included a reference sheet for Derek, but I'd forgotten to put one for the location, and so it had no reference and made it photoreal. And while in the prompt it said animated comedy style, which I thought was enough, it turns out that that wasn't enough for the model to understand that it was all supposed to be in a cartoon style. Remember that I said that these were limited to 15-second clips? Well, to begin with, I didn't really get my head around that at all. And let me show you an example of what happens when you have too much going on in a scene.
Wait, sire! My runes glow brightly with danger. There will be much pain and suffering if we enter this hellhole.
The panic wizard is right, Derek. This feels like a trap, and the return has half price
Pain and suffering if you don't shut up.
Just shut up for a minute, both of you. The paladin spell of true sight will tell me if this is a trap. Read the scroll.
One thing about this entire process that really drives me mad is seemingly it doesn't matter how well you put your prompt together, sometimes the model just decides to completely ignore it. Here's an example on screen right now. As you can see, photorealism in the background all over the place, and quite clearly here it says, no photorealistic locations or people. And here's another example of a duplicated character when I had quite clearly said, do not create additional or duplicate characters. The party is just these 4 characters. And finally, this is the reason that the title sequence for the episode, The Adventures of Derek, is actually spelt incorrectly. Derek is supposed to be D-E-R-I-K, and I actually typed that into the script, put quotes around it, the whole thing, but it decided to autocorrect. Now, autocorrect is fine when you're sending a text to somebody. It's a little more infuriating when you have to spend money and effort trying to fix that problem that should never have been there in the first place. And finally, occasionally for some bizarre reason, the model will decide to add extra bits of script or completely stop understanding the English language. Let me show you an example. This was trying to create a voice for the ego character. Now the idea is that you put a prompt in that gets the character to almost audition for the part and try doing it in 3 or 4 different styles. This is what I got.
I say, have you met Lady Slashington?
The was! Shut you go. The lure imponton. I say, have you met Lady Slashton? Not it from Shangton. Fituant.
So after what felt like an eternity, I had all the clips that I required. I came over to Descript and brought them all in, and with very minimal editing, I had my entire episode. There was just one problem. It wasn't ready. I'd spent 2 weeks on this. I'd skipped a week of posting a video on YouTube, and so I really couldn't afford to spend any more time or money on this particular episode. I'd learned a lot, but I had to get it in the can and get it out there. Now, I wasn't happy with it. It had almost no sound effects on it. It had no music. Certain scenes were really choppy with cuts. Certain scenes, the pacing of the speech was off. The whole thing felt a bit hurried. I could go on and on. I literally could have spent another 2 weeks fiddling with it to get it to be exactly what I wanted it to be. But hey, 2 weeks ago, I had no idea how any of this worked, and I'd had an awful lot of fun. But, as is often the way with these things, that fun came at a price. Okay, so let's talk business for a second. For time, it took me roughly 11 days to get this entire thing done. I was working somewhere around about 7 to 8 hours a day, probably 6 days a week. In terms of credits, overall in this entire period, I spent 9,205.4. The total cost for this was $328.21. And that created 356 total generations, which broke down into 263 images and 77 videos, which, when you consider I only needed 15 for the episode, shows you just how bad the success rate is on this. Now, given my newbie status to all of this and my misunderstandings as to how things worked, I'm hoping that over time this will get more efficient and improve. So if we take all of that, we end up with the following. I have an average cost per credit of 4 cents. Now, remember, that's an average. I was buying credits in packs and different subscriptions and all over the place. Also, image generation is cheaper than video generation, and this was a mix of both of those. On average, it costs 25.75 credits per generation, with each generation costing $1.03. I currently have 675 credits remaining, which is around about $27. So over the course of that episode, which was 3 minutes and 36 seconds, my cost per minute is around about $101. Now that may sound expensive, but when you consider that compared to traditional movie making, it's extremely cheap. So those are the numbers, but what did I learn? And what about that controversial opinion? One thing that surprised me was how unsure I was of whether I was using the correct model or not. There seem to be so many of them that do the same thing, and when you first start out, you can't tell one from the other. Initially, when I started, I thought I would probably need maybe 500, 1,000 credits, something like that, but really had no clue. As we saw earlier, it was more like 9,000 credits. And so quite often you find yourself in a situation that's very frustrating. You want to go down a quality road of tweaking and fiddling and getting it to just the right level that you want for the quality to release, but very often either your frustration levels are too high or your income level is too low to continue to work and work and work on the same scene. Let me just dive into that last point a little bit more. What I found after using these tools for a couple of weeks is that some days you can walk away and you're fine, and other days you walk away completely exhausted. It's extremely difficult to continue to try and find new ways to explain the same thing over and over again when it seems really obvious to you, but the AI keeps on doing things that you didn't expect. So sometimes you find yourself hitting that generate button just in the mad hope that this time it will come up with something that's closer to what you want. See, what you have to bear in mind is every time you hit that generate button, even if you don't change the prompt, you're going to get something slightly different. So either you find yourself hammering the generate button, hoping that this time it's going to work, or changing the prompt and desperately hoping that that doesn't make it any worse. And that brings me to my controversial observation. And that observation is that these new business models seem to be taking us further away from utility and more to something that's akin to gambling. Think about it for a second. When you're gambling, what are you doing? You're spending money with the expectation of a certain outcome that often leads to disappointment and financial cost. So from my experience making the last episode, an example of this would be when I specifically tell the model not to create additional characters and not to duplicate the characters that are already there. But then it ignores this and it does it anyway. This renders the clip completely useless because now you have duplicate characters in there, so you've either wasted your money or you have to spend more money hoping that the next time round it will get it right and you'll get the outcome that you want. Now you tell me, how is that not gambling? That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, stay conscious.